Haas introduced its first, and only, major upgrade package during the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, and when the car first broke cover, it triggered a game of spot the difference in comparison to the Ferrari F1-75. Since Haas made its first appearance in Formula 1 in 2016, similarities between its cars and those of Ferrari have been a regular talking point. But as team principal Günther Steiner always points out, it tends only to be a topic when Haas is performing well, as it is in 2022. Nobody was scrutinising similarities to the Ferrari when Haas was at the back in 2020 and 21. The upgraded Haas makes it the only team other than Ferrari to adopt the distinctive scallop-shaped top surface of the sidepods, so to the naked eye, the resemblance is obvious. But with the way Haas does things through its technical partnership with Ferrari that supplies components and use of the Maranello wind tunnel, the car is unquestionably legal. But why is that? Just how similar is the upgraded Haas VF22 to the 2022 Ferrari, and should we expect some big performance gains in the second half of the season as a result? The Haas team is not afraid of admitting to taking inspiration from Ferrari. As Steiner says, it's only logical for a team that uses the same gearbox, suspension and countless parts under the skin to go in a similar direction as Ferrari. He's even happy to use the word copy. But Steiner is using that word in the perfectly legal sense. Every team closely scrutinises what their rivals are doing, and concepts and ideas are lifted from each other all the time. After all, nobody really starts their F1 car design from scratch by inventing the wheel. Haas takes the maximum permissible components from Ferrari as part of its technical partnership. While the regulations on transferable components mean it has to produce many of the key performance parts that are classified as listed team components, notably the aerodynamic surfaces and chassis, most of the mechanical components under the skin are supplied by Ferrari. This includes the front and rear suspension. This plays a key role in steering the aerodynamic concept, as do the packaging and cooling demands of the power unit package shared by Ferrari and Haas. As Haas head of concept Tom Coupland points out, these components have a big impact on the packaging, shape and aerodynamic design of the car. This means it's logical for Haas to look at what Ferrari is trying to do, but there are limits to how it does this. Firstly, it is illegal to share design data for the listed team components. Haas has no access to the designs of Ferrari aero components, and information cannot be shared in any way about such aero parts. While Haas uses the Ferrari wind tunnel and has its own design hub at Maranello under technical director Simone Resta, himself on loan from Ferrari, it does its design and development work entirely independent of Ferrari itself. And as Steiner has pointed out, the FIA regularly inspects its operation to ensure it complies with these regulations. Secondly, ever since the measures introduced to prevent so-called copycat cars after Racing Point effectively cloned the 2019 Mercedes design for its 2020 car, there are limits to what is considered acceptable copying. Article 17.3.3 of the technical regulations states that it is permissible to be influenced by the design or concept of rivals' cars, but this can only be through observing machinery at tests and on race weekends. The regulations prevent what is called reverse engineering of rival cars, using various forms of trick photography and systems that can convert images into CAD data. It's also not permitted to scan the cars of rivals. Effectively, that means you can look at other cars and copy the concepts based on visual information, provided it's literally just looking at cars or photographs and drawing up your own versions, rather than using technology to replicate them. So Haas has a car that has plenty in common with Ferrari under the skin that plays a big part in dictating its design direction, and it takes the logical course of action of taking as much inspiration as possible from Ferrari. All of this is not only legal, but exactly what a team like Haas should be doing. So just how similar is the Haas to the Ferrari since its upgrade? The new parts only ran on Kevin Magnussen's car in Hungary, given the team didn't have the time to manufacture enough components for Mick Schumacher to run it, partly because of the amount of damage sustained during the first half of the season. The original Haas VF22 already had plenty of similarities to the Ferrari for reasons we've already covered. But Haas's one and only major upgrade package makes it the first team to commit fully to following the scalloped upper surface of the sidepod concept Ferrari pioneered. This is all about directing the airflow to the rear wing and beam wing, eschewing the downwash designs favoured by Red Bull and others. As part of the change, the engine cover is now shaped more like Ferrari's. Haas has also modified the cooling louvres on the top of the sidepods to fit the new shape. The rear suspension arms have a different shape to manage the different motion field of the airflow generated by the shape of the revised engine cover. New rear brake ducts were also added to this, and the floor was revised extensively in the entrance area of the Venturi ducts. But as Gary Anderson, our resident technical expert at the race, points out, it's not all Ferrari based. Anderson points to the fact that Haas's version of the scalloped sidepods features raised top edges that also have a resemblance to the Alpine. This reduces the amount of airflow that will spill over the top outer corner of the sidepods and into the Coke bottle area. This allows the Coke bottle to pull more airflow over the top of the upper floor surface, as opposed to allowing it to be pulled into the low pressure area of the floor underneath the car. There are also plenty of detail differences in the sidepods. The profile of the front end, the shape of the Coke bottle at the rear, these are obvious examples of where Haas has deviated from the Ferrari design and created its own interpretation. It's the same concept certainly, but the geometry of the bodywork does have some changes. Proof that while Haas has certainly taken plenty of inspiration from Ferrari, it's not a straight up copy, and a long way short of the extremes racing point went to when it copied the 2019 Mercedes. Therefore, there's no doubt that it's entirely legal. The Haas upgrade may have made the car look more like a Ferrari, but did it make it go like one? On the evidence of the Hungaroring, no. But given this was the first outing for the upgrade at a track where Haas expected to struggle, it means it's difficult to draw any definitive conclusions. Magnussen qualified 13th, and on pure performance the pace of the car was very similar to the previous event at Paul Ricard. Magnussen's race was effectively ruined early on when he was given the black and orange flag and forced to pit because of front wing damage. He finished 16th, 2 places behind teammate Schumacher in the old spec Haas. But Magnussen felt there were encouraging signs from the upgrade package, which worked as expected, but that the team still needs to understand how to get the most out of. But it could be a while before we get a clear picture of whether Haas has done enough with this upgrade to remain a top 10 threat in the second half of the season. While Haas has a few minor tweaks to come, the car will remain largely unchanged. Haas doesn't expect the upgraded car to perform especially strongly at Spa or Monza, the first and third legs of the post-summer shutdown triple header, given the drag problems of the car that have held it back on circuits with plenty of straights can't be solved until 2023. The drag weaknesses came as a surprise to the team, but although the changes are expected to give it a small gain on straight line performance for the high-speed tracks, the weakness will remain. So it will be a while before we get a clear picture of how good the upgraded Haas really is, and if it can allow the team to hold on to 7th place in the Constructors' Championship, or even challenge Alfa Romeo for 6th place. But given the upgrade showed signs of promise and is inspired by what has been the fastest car on the grid in terms of single lap pace, the signs are encouraging for Haas. The question now is whether it can achieve a better strike rate of converting pace into points finishes, which was a weakness in the first half of the year.